listening to the Dropcast.
Hello, and thanks for tuning in to the Dropcast. I'm your host, Pogoda, and during this unique time of social distancing, we decided to once again try something new. This podcast was streamed live on YouTube from our channel, the Dropspot, as part of Alone Together, an online festival organized by Eden Co-op featuring music, performers, workshops, and talks, all things you'd find at some of your favorite festivals. My co-host is Sharissa Bradley. She is an award-winning author, host of the Tea Time podcast, research psychologist, and speaks on topics relating to how food and lifestyle changes can benefit your overall health and well-being. We sat down and had this conversation via Zoom to discuss the current state of our society during this pandemic and ways in which we can use this time effectively to find healing. There's no right or wrong way to quarantine, but we hope to give you some insights on how this experience is affecting us all personally and collectively, and to offer some ways to cope with isolation and uncertainty. We are all alone together. Please enjoy this conversation with Sharissa Bradley.
You're listening to the Dropcast.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here. I'm excited to be a part of the Alone Together time, this first one, being live streaming together. This is awesome. Thank you.
But I do feel like I've gotten to know you a good bit just from listening to your podcast, and you cover so many great topics relating to health and wellness and mental health. And I guess let's just get started talking about, right now during this pandemic, there's, a lot going on as far as people connecting, whether it's online, on the phone. This is my first time really using Zoom. I was just saying, I just learned and I'm just like immediately going to start live broadcasting. And I've FaceTimed more people in the last 2 days than I have in my entire life. And I know lots of people are just on Facebook and Instagram, and it's really great seeing people come together. But as we were talking about before, I think there's also an important point to make about also, since we're isolating, to do some self-reflection and use this time also to go a little bit deeper. And could you talk a little bit about that as far as your knowledge, as far as spending some time looking at ourselves and coping with isolation and loneliness and ways that we can mentally get through this time?
Yeah, absolutely. I will do my best to tackle that. For me, just to start off right off the bat, the social media aspect and getting involved, because right now we're forced this separation, and that's really a big deal for human beings because we are a tribal society. We need to be around other people. We need to be hugged. We need to be touched. We need to be social. That's so important for us. And so I think there's kind of this push towards getting connected with people through social media. We're so grateful that we have the ability to connect. And I think that we can kind of overdo it in this time, not in the personal connections, but in the what is everybody else doing during this quarantine time. And I think that for right now, the biggest problem that we have to deal with, because we can't have any kind of control over what's happening. We can't control when everybody's going to get to go back to work, or when everybody's going to be healthy again. But there are some things that we can take advantage of, like how we can support ourselves and our own health during this time, and especially our mental health. And I think one thing that happened even before we had this global crisis is that we had social media addictions and people looking to social media for connection. And what it was actually creating was this disconnection, and also a complex within ourselves of feeling like we weren't doing the right things at the right time. And I think that this quarantine time, people posting what they're doing, the books that they're reading, or the projects that they're working on, even kind of watching other people, what they're doing, we can get in our head of am I quarantining correctly? Am I doing it right? Am I, participating appropriately? Am I getting involved enough? For someone like me, I have a podcast and I want to be known for my voice and the things that I want to say to people. And I haven't said anything yet. Not because I don't want to, I just don't have anything valuable to add to the conversation yet. I haven't yet survived a pandemic yet either. I haven't gotten all the way through it either. And I don't ever want to come off as insensitive. Like, I'm frustrated and struggling with having 3 kids at home, and it's a challenge to be cooped up, but I also have food and water and resources, and financially I'm going to be okay this month, and I can sit in security a little bit more than most people can. And so that's where I struggle with, like, what am I going to add to this that wouldn't hurt somebody else? And I think that that's kind of where we can get messed up with social media right now, is a lot of people having all the time in the world putting out what they're doing with their time. You can still kind of look to that as like, oh, FOMO, like I'm not doing the right things, I'm not quarantining the right way. And then also you have no control over what you get exposed to. So you could be like fa la la, in a good mood, feeling okay, feeling like you're doing all right, and then like smash, like right in your face is something like horrible that's going on today. And we all know, like, there's a lot of things that are happening right now. And not being able to control what you're exposed to, especially on Facebook, like scrolling on something and you're just like in it, scrolling. And then like, bam, there's like this, like hospitals, so-and-so died, didn't get treatment. Like all of that is going to bring us down really pretty quickly. So doing these things, like kind of coming back to ourselves, coming back to like, what does it look like for me to just like sit here and be home today, or like get to know my kids a little bit more, or or like kind of sit in it. And I think there's like a struggle to get out of that. It's very uncomfortable for a lot of people. I think a lot of people are really uncomfortable right now. I certainly am very uncomfortable, just like uncertain, feeling like, oh, what is going to happen? I feel uncertain. And that adds to it, right? It leads to more uncertainty. It leads to more of like, I have no idea what's going on and nobody else has any idea what's going on. I
think especially when people start feeling that is when they really do start turning to social media. And it kind of is a way to almost like self-soothe, like, a distraction, like a way to be like, oh, well, let me just see what everyone else is doing. And sometimes that's not the best answer. It's not the best way. And sometimes it can actually contribute to the feeling that we're already having, and the comparison to what everyone's doing. So I definitely agree on that. And I think, I don't know, when I get that feeling of that loneliness or whatever, I found that sometimes I just need to sit with it, and I just need to really like go inside and realize where that's coming from, instead of just immediately turning to a distraction. And
absolutely, like leaning into that discomfort and saying like, I mean, that's really how we grow, and that's really how we change, is we lean into that feeling of like, oh my gosh, for me, it's like, I need something sweet. Like I need sugar, I need a cupcake, I need a piece of cake. Like I really want that sweet treat. And I'm having to go like, why am I seeking that comfort specifically? Because that's the last thing your body wants when it's trying to, like keep itself sick, not from getting sick, like our immune system certainly doesn't want sugar, but there are parts of my brain that are going like, that's the only thing that's going to make me happy right now. That's the only thing that's going to bring me comfort right now. The problem is when that thing is over, when that stimulus is gone, the feeling still persists, right? So we're still empty and lonely after the thing is gone. I think it's just different levels of, I don't know if I want to say addiction's a strong word, but it's different levels of, finding something that is like soothing, but not necessarily good for us. It's like our coping mechanisms, right? Like how are we going to choose to cope with these things? For me and my family, we've been coping by like doing all the little projects around the house that we have just kind of let go. So like little things, when we moved our son into his room, we never covered the holes from the previous room design that it was. So we spent like 20-30 minutes like fixing it up, making our home feel good again, like we feel good here. And I think that's very important. If you're not comfortable in your home, it's going to add to the discomfort right now. So doing things that can make you feel a little bit more comfortable, like cleaning out the clutter, cleaning it up, kind of organizing, bringing in some freshness so that you feel like, this feels good to be here, rather than like, I feel crazy being in my house right now, like, which is, so easy to go between.
Yeah. Yeah, I think definitely clearing your space. I'm a big advocate of every day. I like to start off and completely clear my space before I start new. And now that we're spending so much time inside and in our spaces, it's really important for people to do that, and also having those like mental resets. It's like you wake up in the morning and you reset your space and you get it to like creating some sort of normalcy or some sort of routine that you can keep yourself in. So yeah, decluttering
That's
and
been
go ahead.
Yeah, and that's been helping me, like, to have like a little bit of a routine. Like, okay, we're gonna get up, we're gonna have breakfast, we're gonna, every day we have a walk and we have a bike ride or something like that. Just to break up the day a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things we did when it all kind of started going in this direction was we made a list of things that we could do together, activities that we could do around the house. So like reading, playing games, like specifically bought board games. Specifically, we bought some puzzles, like just activities that we could do when we started to feel like, now I don't know what I'm supposed to do anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, sometimes it's nice to not do. Sometimes it's nice to just sit and be still, but that's something that we have to relearn how to do now.
Yeah. I kind of wanted to dig into that a little bit more about some people are quarantined alone too, and confronting loneliness on a very deep level. And I'm wondering if you have any sort of advice or ways that people, there's the connecting, whether it's online or Zoom or, however they need to reach out to people, but also like what sort of healing work we can do on our own now that we have this opportunity to feel alone or feel loneliness. What sort of practices or things that we can
Absolutely.
engage in?
So right off the bat, I'm thinking like breath work and meditation. As soon as we're starting to feel those like heavy, heavy feelings, because loneliness is not just this like, oh, I feel lonely. Lonely is like heavy and empty and like sits on you, but is also so like hollowing at the same time. Like
Mm.
it's such a physical thing, right? It's not just emotional. And I think one thing that I've been really trying to share with people lately is emotions. We want to call them or think about them as like this abstract like concept of like feeling angry or feeling sad or feeling mad or feeling lonely. But it is such a physical thing. Like our body is actually producing hormones that are touching every single cell in our body to make us feel those feelings. So sadness is a combination of hormones that are affecting all of our cells: loneliness, anger, fear, all of that. So what we're feeling is not just like, just whatever, like it is so much a part of us. And that it needs to be honored a little bit. We need to kind of sit with that, honor that, and understand like, where is that coming from? Why am I feeling like this? For me, I had a couple of days ago, I was just like wrapped up in just everything, wrapped up in myself. And I decided like, I'm going to paint my bedroom. So I painted my master bedroom and my bathroom by myself. And at one point I did have this like crushing feeling of loneliness. And the thing that got me through, like I cried for like an hour, like it needed to come out. I just like
Mm-hmm.
had to, you have to honor that, like get it
Mm-hmm.
out. And I was just listening to music, and that helps me feel connected. Music is such a
Mm.
connection, right? It makes you feel like, especially if you're listening to music that fits in that feeling that you're having, right?
Mm.
It makes you feel like other people have had this feeling
Yeah, you're not
too.
alone.
So much is so, yeah, so much so that this became a popular song for so many years, like
Mm.
everybody leaned on this in that moment, and you can kind of gain connection from that. It's like looking at the moon and knowing that we're all looking at the same moon, like we're connected, we're all connected. But
Mm.
having that music and understanding like, okay, like I'm feeling sad right now and lonely, and that's making me cry, and that's okay. And also other people have felt this way. I'm not alone right now. And part of the reason that we're feeling these things in such a big way is because so many people are feeling those things, and just the collective thought right now is really uncertain.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just what it is. And that's really uncomfortable.
I think too, it's giving yourself the permission to feel. And a lot
Oh,
of
yeah.
people, they'll get sad or start crying or, feel that loneliness, and they immediately want to shut it off instead of just, giving yourself the permission and allowing yourself to go through that human experience. And I think that's definitely important to, just allow yourself. And then I do think there reaches a point of, expressing and getting it all out where the healing happens. And then I do feel at some point you do need to reach out in order to like fully pull yourself, not like, because some people could easily just spiral into
Oh,
depression.
yeah. Oh,
And
yeah. You got to get grounded, like find some facts and get
mhm,
grounded, right? Like we can't go so far into it.
yeah, there's
Um,
there's
but there are
definitely
so many good ways to connect right now.
mhm,
Even this platform right now, like coming and watching this video live and being like, oh, okay, we're all alone together. And this part brings us connection. And that's helping us to come back to what it really is. Like, okay, we really are still all in this together, even though it
mhm,
feels lonely in the moment.
yeah. Yeah, and I don't know, I mentioned this before that you've studied a lot of psychology, and you were a at one point you were doing personal one-on-one sessions, and then recently you wrote a book, or it was last year that your book came out, I think you said.
Yeah, I think it's been out for like 15, 16 months, something like that. Yeah.
Oh, nice. So, I don't know, do you wanna tell us a little bit more about your book and what inspired you to write it and what made you take the shift from helping people, more, as a traditional coach or psychologist towards writing the book and sharing it on a much larger platform?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for giving me the opportunity. I was diagnosed with autoimmune disease maybe, I guess, like 7 years ago now, and it was like this crazy, crazy crushing blow because my mom, when I was a kid, had been diagnosed with autoimmune disease, and she just let it, like, shut her down for, like, that was it. Like, I had a mom
Mm,
until I was about 11, and then, like, and, kind of she just, like, let it take over. Like, it was it. That was it. She was in bed for the rest of my teenage years, and then I moved out, and she still kind of has that disease mentality. But
mm,
um, for me, when I got diagnosed, I also had little kids, and I just thought, like, I cannot go that right. I cannot go that way. Like, I have to be, there's got to be another way. Like, I'm not going to have little kids who don't get to have a mom. Like, that's such a crazy,
mm,
like, repeated pattern, and it just wasn't going to happen to me. So like you said, I actually have a master's degree in psychology, and it's research based. So when I was getting my master's degree, I wrote a thesis and did a project on nutrition and nutrition understanding, and kind of why we make the choices that we make, even though we know better, right? Like, I know that sugar is like the worst thing for my immune system right now, but I'm feeling sad and lonely. So, like, I want the bag of cinnamon bears, and, like, I'm just going
mhm,
to do it. Right.
mhm,
And so I just needed to find a different way for myself. So I leaned back into that research and understanding, like, what that all was, and what it means to actually make the right choices, what it means to actually change my habits and behaviors. And I read a ton of books about how to change your habits, how to rewire your brain and make things like the way that you want them to go, rather than the way that we're just kind of programmed naturally. Like, 95% of our daily processes are pre-programmed. We have very little choice in what we actually do every day. It's just like habit. That's how we
mm,
survive. And so to break those habits, to change that, and to heal myself from autoimmune disease, it was the opposite path that my mom had taken.
mm,
So I did that, and then it took about 2 years of doing just kind of like all different treatment therapies, all different like diets, all different supplements. It ultimately came down to like self-love, getting my mind right, releasing the traumas, as well as food and proper supplements and other holistic treatments like chiropractic care and acupuncture and other therapies. So when I did figure out all of the formula and just what it actually takes to heal your body, I felt almost like a obligation, like I had to share with everybody what I had learned. Like I had been given this amazing, incredible gift and I got my life back. And I never again was going to have to tell somebody like, I'm sick, I have autoimmune disease. I was never going to tell my kids, I'm sorry, but mommy can't get out of bed today, I don't have the energy for it. It just wasn't going to happen. So I wanted to share that with everybody. So I started telling people like, okay, I healed myself of autoimmune disease, I can help you too. So I started individually coaching people, and that drained my energy immensely. And so the next option for me to share the information was to write a book. And that was extremely terrifying. And I had to fight the demons in my head every single day to sit down and write this book. But eventually it did get written, and I self-published or did hybrid publishing just so that the book was out there. And then that gave me kind of permission to help more people, lots of people at one time, and for a very, very reasonable price, because working one-on-one with somebody can add up pretty quickly. But if you can figure things out on your own, if you're given a map, then those are the kind of things that I was hoping people would be able to do, like take the book as a roadmap and then just kind of like run with it and be able to heal their bodies the way that I did. I really feel like when you're given an obstacle in your life, you have to figure out the way to get through the obstacle. There isn't anybody who's ever going to be able to tell you like, this is actually the way through. And you have to take all the steps yourself, right? And even learning it with autoimmune disease, I still am now learning it with like motherhood and being a wife and just existing in society. Like every challenge, we have to find our way through. And coaching one-on-one, I was able to kind of give some support, but in reality, like I said, you have to do it on your own. You really have to just like, okay, I'm gonna make these changes for myself, and I'm gonna change these habits for myself. And once that happens, I love being the cheerleader. I love coming alongside you and saying like, heck yeah, you got this. And then I do have clients still who call me and say like, this is what's coming up for me, and I get to help guide them through like these little obstacles as they go on their path. And that's really what I do now. So people come to me with a little bit more understanding than what they used to have before. And I get to just be the cheerleader and guide them along, because really we have to find our own path. And I can give a million different options, but I can't make any changes for anybody else. So I just get to be a cheerleader supporter. That's my job.
As you mentioned in one of your podcasts, it's really hard to change people, that people have to want to change themselves, as we hear over and over again. Why don't you mention the name of your book for anyone that's interested?
Yeah, so the book is called Journey Back to Health, and 6 Steps to Confidently Getting Your Life Back. So it's actually a pretty short read, and it's written to be kind of conversational, because it's meant for the person who's dealing with illness and you don't want to be like reading some lengthy book. So it's 17 chapters. Each chapter is really short, about 4 to 5 or 6 pages long, and each one is an actionable step of some sort. So one chapter talks specifically about stress and how to minimize the physical stress effects of stress on your body, and like how to actually make changes for those things. And also a chapter on detox through it. And so each one would bring somebody to the next level on their own healing path.
Yeah, one of the things that you mentioned that I think is kind of a umbrella overlap on all these topics is self-love. And right now that we're spending so much time with self, it's a really good opportunity for us to really understand self-love, that a lot of people have their own ways of going about it, interpretations of it. You had
Yeah.
an episode where you talked about, and I could really relate, because a lot of times people describe self-love as going to the salon and getting their nails done. And I, well, while that works for someone, that's not really self-love to me. To me, self-love is going for a hike, or
Yeah.
taking time to spend with my dog, or
Yeah.
doing a creative project that I've been putting off. So, why don't you talk a little bit about what self-love means to you, and ways that people can be using this time to tap into what self-love actually means to them, and how that they can practice it.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, I have been so obsessed with this topic lately because I
Mhm.
feel like to me self-love is like an onion. Like it's very much like super super layered. And like the very first layer of self-love is pretty superficial. It's just like this like very thin layer of like whatever. It's like hashtag self-love, got my nails done today, hashtag self-love, like those kind of things. And that is your first level, and especially to like our generation of people growing up, we didn't have anybody who really like loved themselves. Like growing up, we didn't have a lot of examples of people who loved themselves. So that is the first level. That is that like, okay, I'm treating myself, treat yourself. Like that's that first level of self-love. And then we get to the next level, and the next level looks like never letting yourself get hungry, because
Mhm.
self-love is recognizing that you're a physical body and that your physical body has physical needs, not I'll sleep when I'm dead, I don't need to drink water, those kind of things. So self-love looks
Mhm.
like getting enough water every single day, sleeping as much as you should, matter. Like think about all the time being a mom, being a woman, like running around doing a million things, and every time thinking like I really have to pee, but then like, oh no,
Mhm.
but I need to like make my cup of coffee, and like I need to do this, and I need to write this list, and then an hour later being like, oh my god, I never went pee. That is self-love, right? Like so that's that next level of self-love. And now I'm coming to this place where I'm looking at it like, okay, self love is every time I get upset or depressed or sad or lonely, that voice that comes up that says, you should be happy right now. You should feel good about yourself right now. You have a home and a this and a that and a this. You should feel better. That is the point that I'm trying to learn right now. And that layer of my onion that's like, that's the opposite of self love. That
Mhm.
is self loathing. That is self
Mhm.
hatred. That is being a bully, that is stress inducing, traumatizing. That's like picked off and saying, like, don't worry, you don't have to be my bully anymore. Like, I'm going to pick up and bully myself now. And that is the level of self love that I'm hoping that we can get to during this time of quarantine. Because
Mhm.
when we have those feelings, when we're feeling like I'm feeling sad right now, it's even like give yourself the permission to feel it, and then hear that voice that's like not self-love, that's the opposite of self-love, and say like that's the part that we need to be working on right now,
Mhm.
and journaling about and reflecting about and saying like, I am a human being who has a range of human emotions, and it's appropriate to feel all of them. And I was thinking today, for some reason, it hit me about happiness and like being happy. And I actually couldn't even think of like what a definition for what happiness actually means. Like, what
Mhm.
does it mean to actually be happy? I don't even feel like happiness is an emotion. It's like maybe a combination of like contentment
Mhm.
or joy or pleasure or satisfaction or excitement. But happiness as a construct, I feel
Mm.
like doesn't really exist. And
Yeah.
to strive for it, to say like I'm reaching for happiness, like
Mm.
that is setting ourselves up for that like perfectionist failure
Mm.
situation right from the start. And I feel like even striving for happiness is going against self-love, because self-love is saying I am a human who is allowed to have every range of emotion, and it's perfectly acceptable to
Mhm.
do so. So if you're sitting at home feeling like pissed off because like you cannot go and get your favorite sushi right now, and your ice cream shop is closed, and like what, I'm pissed, like that is okay. That is okay. And like the additional being mad at yourself for being pissed, that's the part we want to get rid of,
Mm,
you know? Like
yeah.
go punch a pillow, go scream in the shower, like cry for 5 minutes, write journal, and then like burn it, like
Yeah.
this is so important right now.
Yeah, we can't just hold those feelings inside, and we can't get angry at ourselves for having those feelings, because that kind of just compounds the whole problem. And making the distinction between having gratitude, which, having gratitude is definitely important, and we need to recognize, especially when we start getting down, the things that we do have, but also recognizing that, we're human, and there's things that we want that we don't have, and we are going to experience an emotion, and we can't just sweep it under the rug. It's and just tell ourselves like, oh, that's crazy, I should just be grateful for everything. But allowing yourself to feel before moving on to that next step.
Yeah. Well, and two things to that to add. Like, first of all, gratitude, that's a feeling, that's an
Mm,
actual emotion. Like, we can feel gratitude even more than happiness, right? We can feel that gratitude.
mm,
And that's such a good place to be, like to find that place for yourself. But
mm,
that other part of it, that like what I should be feeling,
mm,
I feel like that's coming from comparison and like social
mhm,
comparison, and understanding, first of all, that it's all relative. Like we are all each individually having our own experience, and we are 100% allowed to have our own experience. Yes, somebody may be having an experience that's maybe even more challenging than yours is right now, but that's where we have to let go of that social comparison, because you as your own individual are allowed to have your own feelings right now, even with other people having struggles too.
mm,
And that's where we kind of, maybe the problem with, not problem with social media, but that aspect of social media that's kind of like giving that comparison of like,
mhm,
I'm mad, but like you shouldn't be mad because that other person has it worse than you. But like
mm,
that's where maybe we need to turn it off and shut it down
mhm.
and say like, it's okay for me to be having my own experience, and not being on social media is allowing me to feel my own experience and nobody
Mhm.
else's.
Yeah, I think social media too, another aspect of it is the overflood of information, whether it's the comparing to other people or the news or whatever. As
Absolutely.
human beings, we aren't really wired to have all of these things pulling our attention in so many directions. So it's really hard to even remember who we are and focus on ourselves when you're like, oh, but this is happening there, and this is happening there, and this person's about to do this, and why am I not doing that? And I think that that huge distraction, obviously I'm not bashing all social media, I'm on social media too, but yeah, just reminding people that, spend a day and just not even look at a computer, to spend a day, like go off in your backyard, or spend time just with your
Yeah.
family, or maybe even like, I had a friend who, it was like every Friday she completely didn't look at social media, and she said it was like changing her life, just having that one day and starting there, and being able to be with yourself and be with what other people you have in your sphere physically.
Absolutely. I mean, it's only hard for like the first couple of times, right? Like
Mhm.
anytime we learn something new, there's going to be a learning curve.
Yeah.
I wanted to add to what you were saying about social media being so many, pulling us in so many directions. I think it kind of dawned on me when you said that, like, we don't really consider social media taking us in a lot of different directions, because we're really only going to one place,
Mm.
right? We're only really going to Facebook, or we're really only going to Instagram. Um, and then there is that like cognitive, actually where we're actually going is all of those places that are popping up.
Mhm.
So then we have this distinction of, okay, all of these different things that we're doing versus the social media, like this coming together where we're on an individual level, even talking to a community, being together as a community. That is a totally different type of socializing,
Mhm.
right? Rather than like being taken everywhere, we're coming back together. I feel like almost like this is more grounding, more centering,
Mhm.
paying attention to that one thing, having one conversation, and having that human connection that's more than just a scroll on a screen, for sure.
Yeah, I definitely have noticed that, since I've been or uh, going on one-on-one interactions like this, like doing Zoom with people or doing FaceTime. And it's been so valuable to me. And I told people, I was like, hey, if you want to communicate, don't find me online, just send me a text, send me a FaceTime. I would love to see your face. Like,
Yeah.
and so many times, and since I've been cutting myself off of social media more, I'm craving that more. And the interactions I'm having with people one-on-one have been so much more valuable. I've actually feel like I've gotten to know people better now that I haven't been around them physically, because we're having this undistracted, like I'm in my house, you're in your house, we're not out at a party or out in a restaurant or a place with all these other distractions. We're able to really focus on each other. And I think that's like this connection that's happening right now that is so valuable that that's what we really need to focus on.
I completely agree. I completely agree. All of my conversations with people in the last 2 weeks have been so much more intimate, just like
Mm,
even with even just doing FaceTime, and even just doing a little 20-minute connection. I feel getting off the phone, hitting, like putting the phone down, like, I
hmm.
just spent time with a friend.
Yeah.
Like it feels that's what it felt like, I just felt like I had this time. And I love that what you're saying about not having the distractions, because even now when we're sitting at home and there's like a quiet moment and we're kind of getting a little bit uncomfortable, I feel myself like, we should go out to eat, we should go to a restaurant, like we should go bowling or something. And it's like that urgency to like go, be, do.
Hmm.
And we're having to kind of like, okay, no, settle that down, like let's do a puzzle, like, let's channel
Hmm.
that energy somewhere else. But it's such an interesting thing, without these added distractions, how much more connected we can actually be.
Hmm. Yeah, it's interesting. I just got like chills kind of thinking about it, because I feel like this is such a revolutionary time. I feel like we've known that this time was coming. We weren't really sure how it was going to happen. We knew that there was a big shift coming, whether it's physically, how we communicate with each other, the future of the internet. And this has kind of forced a lot of things to happen at once, whether it's us paying more attention to our health. Like a lot of people are working out more. There's like so many online yoga classes. There's so
Yeah.
many like free workouts and everything. And everybody's like, well, I got nothing else to do. I'm gonna work out more, and I'm gonna take this cooking class, and I can't just run to the store and get junk food whenever I want. So I'm like
Yeah.
forced to make more meals at home, and also the person to person connection. So I feel like this is just such a huge revolutionary shift, and we're looking at it as a whole as this negative pandemic and
Yeah.
everything's awful and this is crazy, but like there's some really positive things coming out of this. Like, look, we're on an online festival right now
I,
that people could sit at home and
uh,
get advice from a psychologist. Like I
yeah.
personally was putting it out there to the world. I was like, I feel like it's time for me to do some therapy. I want to talk to a therapist. I hadn't found a person yet. I kind of was trying different online things. And then of course you came into my life, and I'm like, oh look, perfect, a therapist that I can do a podcast with. And here we are. And I'm getting just firsthand confirmation of these things I've been
Yeah.
thinking, and also listening to your podcast, and just getting some time to really reflect on all of these concepts and things that have been going on in my head. And yeah, it's been really encouraging, and it's also hearing your firsthand accounts of how you went through autoimmune disease and what you went through with your mother, and how it's kind of shifted your life path and helped you find really, like, these negative experiences at the time helped you really find your calling. And now you have this ability to really help people. Like I always say, I went through one of the hardest experiences of my life when I lost my mom 6 years ago now. But since then, I've lost a number of people very close to me. Friends have lost their parents. And I almost felt like going through that experience was preparing me for what was coming soon, with helping other people like get through their grief and, figure out more positive ways of healing. And that's what you're doing. It's the finding the positive ways to heal instead of putting the band-aids on the problem, and changing our habits and changing whatever's holding us back so that we can become better versions of ourselves.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm always reminded of that old saying that people would say, like, you can't see the forest through the trees.
Mm,
Like, and I feel like we're just like right in the middle of the forest right now. And at some point, we're going to get that bird's eye view of what this is all doing for everybody. And I hate to say, like, oh, this is a positive thing. Like, so many amazing things are coming because of it.
mm,
Just like you said, like getting to know ourselves a little bit better, but also getting connected in these ways. Like, now all of a sudden, there's so much more that is available to me now at home. So like I am home with 3 kids, but
mm,
like now I've got all these classes and all these amazing things that I'm doing. Like tomorrow I'm attending an all day women's retreat online. And like first thing in the morning, there's like a Zoom call for yoga and an opening
mm,
circle. And at the end, and it's all free. Like, I mean, it's all like, just come and be part of a community and
mm.
support yourself being at home. So all of these opportunities are now all of a sudden available, and so much more available to everybody who was at home before anyways, who couldn't
Yeah.
really afford to leave their house to go and do a retreat, but could very easily jump in for a couple of hours during a day and get that benefit of being connected to each other.
Yeah, it's been really amazing seeing the way that people are coming together and getting creative with connecting and offering whatever their service is. And also it's kind of changing the economy. Well, the economy obviously is changing
Oh
in a
yeah. Oh
huge way
yeah.
right now, but also with people offering these services, it's creating this like trade economy of just energy. People are like, I have something, I have a way to help, I'm just going to offer it up, and
Yeah.
without even like expecting anything in return. And I think we're going to reach the point where the return is going to be apparent, but in the meantime, I just love seeing people just like, I'll whatever I can do to help. And it's
Yes.
it's really encouraging to see people being unselfish in that
Yeah.
way.
Yeah.
And
Well,
yeah,
and
what
sharing their gifts, right? Like stepping into who they are and saying, like, I have this ability. I've
mm-hmm.
seen friends who just like every day, like, here's a lettering video tutorial, like sit down and watch this video and learn how to do this fun lettering project. Like
Hmm.
totally like random, like these are your gifts, like just sharing them and bringing joy to people, and giving activities, right? Like we don't know how to entertain ourselves. We've never been given the opportunity to have hours in the day to entertain ourselves.
Hmm.
So now I feel like people are offering us new ways to learn, to entertain, to be a part of something and to grow during this time. And
Hmm.
all of these gifts are being shared.
Yeah, it's amazing. And it's kind of a lot of speculating to kind of think about where this is going next. Once
Yeah.
we talk about when this is all over, people say, oh, I can't wait till this is all over and I get to hug my friends. And it's kind of a crazy thing to think about. Like, how is it even going to be over? Like, what
Right.
what is over? I guess once all the restaurants open again and we're able to go out in public, I'm not sure. Or like, there's still
Yeah.
going to be this time of the economy, like
Yeah.
balancing itself out. It's never going to go back to being what it was before. Everyone's like,
I
I just
think
want it to go back to normal. It's like, what was normal?
uh,
Do we want
I
that?
think no. I think we were a little bit sheep before all of this happened, and I think like a little sheepish, like in going with the flow of things.
Mm-hmm.
And I think just in a time of extreme discomfort, we want to imagine that there will be a point at which things will be comfortable again. But with any challenge in our lives, like you saw with your challenges in your life and my challenges in my life, like there's these hurdles that we have to go through with each one, and you never really reach. First of all, there is no end, right? Ever.
Mm-hmm.
You're dead at that point. But like we're continually growing, right? This is just the next evolution of whatever is happening to the human species and the planet. Like our pendulum has swung so far in one direction and we overcorrected, right? Like we have such like a masculine energy in the world, and like things need to be balanced again. We need to come back to balance. And I don't think we as a human species has even seen balance in the lives that any of us have even lived. So, like not even in the last 2000 years, probably. So I think we're going to come to a new place of normal. And I don't know when it's going to feel comfortable again. And I think part of this journey is going to be getting comfortable with kind of not knowing and really developing a faith again in humanity and ourselves, in our ability to adapt, in our ability to grow. And that's part of our new evolution. And we just kind of like got shaken. It wasn't like going to be a slow growth. And I've talked about this before on another podcast episode, but it was like, I don't feel like I've ever gone into any of the challenges that I've faced in my life that have taught me anything willingly. I always have felt like I've gone kicking and screaming, and this doesn't feel like any exception. It's just like, no, don't make me grow, please. And I just kind of feel like I have this visual of like being dragged through, like this is the next opportunity to grow, and it's not comfortable, but like here we are.
Yeah, growth and healing both are not comfortable. I mean, growing pains, it's a real thing physically and mentally. And so
absolutely.
So yeah, we're going through it. We're all growing and we're changing and we're evolving. And I think resiliency and being able to go with the flow and adapt as things change quickly. And I mean, it's kind of something I personally feel like I've been preparing myself for unknowingly for a while.
Yeah.
I've kind of lived this nomadic lifestyle as of the last few years, and I've become very self-sufficient and focused more on getting back to nature and finding solace in being alone and being outside and getting back to more plants, just surrounding myself with more plants, ingesting more plants, getting healthier. And it's kind of a wake up call to everyone. And it's like how we choose to respond to it. Are we going to evolve, or are you going to fight it the whole time?
Yeah.
And this is like a big calling for all of us to just, change some things in our lives. And hopefully it carries on whenever this is over. whatever
that even means.
I'm curious, like what's going to happen when all the things do start opening. Cause I've spent good periods of my life kind of isolated. I lived out in the desert for a while and I kind of didn't talk to anyone for a long time. And then I went into the city and I'd go to a party and I was just like, oh God, everybody's trying to hug me. Yeah. And it was very loving and it was amazing. But I was also like the introvert side of me just like came out, and I was like, I don't know how to talk to anyone. I'm so awkward. And I'm just imagining once everything opens again, it's going to be people like in a party or in a bar or something. And everybody's just gonna be like, hey, how's it been?
Yeah, it for sure is going to be awkward, right? Because like right now, one of the big things that's going around is like a fear of other people, like stay 6 feet away from other people. So right now we're being told to fear everyone else. So like this social connection, like this feels great and this feels safe. But like even getting in my car, driving around, like I can feel the fear and the tension of other people around me. Like, don't get near me. Like, is that person in the car next to me sick? Like you can feel
people don't hold the door for each other anymore. I've noticed that.
Like, so it's coming back together is going to be a challenge. Like this whole thing is a challenge, right? You said you're curious to see what comes up, and the word curious, it kind of dawned on, like it kind of hit me like that is the word that we need to be playing with right now. Because if we can get on the other side of uncertainty, which is curiosity, right? If we can get to that point, if we can be like, what is it going to be? What is it
Yeah.
going to be? Then we turn from like fear, what is the economy going to be? What is everything going to look like, to kids on Christmas morning? Like, okay, now we know that the old women and people and other, like, just in general, we don't treat other human beings appropriately, like, period, right? Like, it's just like nobody is treating each other kindly. Like, we need more kindness in the world. There needed to be a change. There needed to be a shakeup. We needed to have a little bit more self-love in order to be able to give a little bit more love and empathy. You cannot be and give more love if you don't have it to give. So we needed this shutdown, this close out, this be in your own space and cry and scream and let it go and release the trauma and find joy. And then once you have joy again, we can go out and spread it into the world. And that's what I'm hopeful for. And I love that you said curious, because like that is coming to me, like that's where we need to be. We need to find a way to be curious again, be curious about learning, be curious about life, be curious about ourselves and what brings us joy, but then also curious about the world at large. Like, what is it going to look like? Not like, oh, what is it? But like, what is it going to be next?
Yeah.
What new paradigm are we stepping into from this shift? And this is history right now. Like, people talk about like the wars and Vietnam and the 60s and all of this. People are going to talk about 2020 and this pandemic. And we are right now in the weeds, in the trees. We can't see it, but we're right at the beginning of a paradigm shift. And every time I think about that, it makes me like my knees, like I get chills down my legs, because I'm getting curious.
Yep.
Like I'm scared too, but like the curiosity will always win out, right? Like curiosity killed the cat. Like, get curious again.
Yeah, I keep coming up with the analogy in my head of the butterfly, and that we're in this cocoon stage where we were these little caterpillars just kind of going along, and we were just kind of doing our thing and eating our leaves and living our lives. And then something happened and we had to kind of close up and turn inside, and we're in that like swirling, evolving stage right now. And then at some point we're all just gonna fly out of it, hopefully. and
Hopefully.
But we're gonna come out evolved, and we're gonna come out with these new skills. I mean, like I learned how to do a live stream. That's already that I've acquired. But we're gonna spread our wings and fly. Really.
Right. And we're going to realize how strong we are, right? Because every time you get through a struggle, anytime you come out the other side and you survived the next day and it didn't kill you, you know how strong you are. So we're going to come out of this going like, wow, we are strong. We can do hard things. Bring it on. And let's do it. Let's get curious and let's change and like actually see it happen. Like it is happening, right? It is.
Yeah, I get chills every time I just think about what's going on right now and where we're at, and it's a good thing. It's the uncertainty, but definitely the curiosity of where it's going to go next. Is we definitely weren't on the best path as a human species before, and I can't see it getting much worse. So definitely looking forward to things to come and to people going through their evolution personally right now, and confronting their darkness and confronting their demons and their loneliness and getting through it and figuring out ways to come together. It's just, it's really inspiring.
It is. And it's work for everybody. Like I just want to say like, thank you to anybody who's doing the work, because everybody who's looking at those dark sides of themselves, everybody who's going into the loneliness and letting themselves feel it and letting it go, that is work for all of us. Because then when we all come back together, like we're coming back lighter and stronger and safer and freer than we ever were before, not for thousands of years. So like we're doing the hard work. So, I mean, that's commendable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think I think we're going to end in a good place here. It's almost 8:00.
Okay. Cool.
We've been going.
I love it. We're in the flow.
I think that's a good note to end on. Is there any way you would like people to contact you if they want to buy your book, or if they, have any further questions?
Yeah, so the easiest thing is just to go to the website, sharissabradley.com. Everything is there, including a contact page. So if there's any time you want to shoot me like an email, just like, hey, this is what's going on. Also, the podcast episodes, there's a podcast blog on the website. So all the episodes are right there on the website. The blog, there is a blog with all those same kind of topics. If reading is more your thing, there's a YouTube channel if videos are more your thing. So there's tons and tons of information. The book link is there. And then I'm accessible. So, right, if you send me that in the email contact form, I'm on the other end of that. So
Great.
that's it.
I'll include the link in the when I put this up on YouTube. So yeah, if anybody missed any part of this or wants to watch the whole thing in its entirety, I'm gonna put the whole recording up on YouTube, and I'll put your link in there. And if anyone's interested in seeing more of my podcasts, there's I think 6 up there right now. If you go to you can go to my website, which is thetdropspot.com, or on YouTube, it's the Tea Drop Spot. And if on Instagram, I'm at the Tea Drop Trailer, because this all started because of a little wooden tea trailer that I used to drive around and serve tea. And somehow it evolved into a podcast, especially now since I can't drive around and serve tea as much anymore. But it's funny that I started this like kind of at the end of last year, because this is becoming the main thing. And at some point I'll be able to serve tea for all of you also while we do this. And we'll be doing this live in person somewhere, some beautiful location under some trees, and just sipping tea and
Yeah, I can't wait.
Taking guest questions. So, well, thank you so much for joining me. That was such a great conversation. And I hope it encouraged some people and, put a little bit of a positive light to what's going on, and help people be a little bit more curious and inspired that this is an evolutionary time, and we're going to come out of this better.
Yeah, stronger.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, great seeing you.
You too. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.
You're listening to the Tea Dropcast.
Thanks again for tuning in to the Tea Dropcast. If you'd like to watch more of our episodes, you can visit our YouTube channel, The Tea Drop Spot. Or if you just want to listen, we're available on Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Play, and iHeartRadio. Please subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback is valuable to us. Follow us on Instagram at @TheTeaDropTrailer. And check out our website, thetdropspot.com, to learn more about our guests and ways we're working to foster the connection between humans and plants. If you have a question, would like to be featured, or if you'd like to be a sponsor, drop us a line at thetdropspot@gmail.com.